The first time Karen stopped me at the end of my driveway, she was holding a clipboard and wore the expression of someone who thought the world needed more rules, and she was just the person to enforce them. "Excuse me," she said, stepping in front of my truck as I idled, window down. "You can't leave your trash cans out past 7 a.m. on pickup day." I raised an eyebrow. "Morning. Are you lost?" Her eyes narrowed behind large tortoiseshell sunglasses. "No, I'm the HOA president for this community. I've had 3 complaints about your property already, and I wanted to give you a chance to correct things before we issue citations." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "Ma'am," I said, "I'm not in your HOA." That was true. I had bought this land outright 2 years ago, 30 acres surrounding a spring-fed lake that used to be a fishing camp. It was the last private parcel carved out before the nearby developers bought up everything else and started building subdivisions like Lego sets. She gave me a tight smile. "Everyone in this area is under the HOA, sir. If you have a home here, you agreed to the terms. That includes lawn standards, boat size restrictions, and appearance regulations. Your dock is, well, frankly, it's unsightly." I stared at her for a moment. "I built that dock with my own hands. It's not even visible from the road." "The lake is community property," she snapped, "and we maintain standards for public enjoyment." I exhaled slowly. "Lady," I said, "this lake is not public. I own it. The entire shoreline. All the land around it. It's on my deed." Karen blinked like I just told her I owned the moon. "That's impossible. Lakes belong to the HOA. It's shared use." "Not this one," I said, shifting the truck into gear. "I'd recommend you look at a plat map before you threaten me again." She stepped aside, fuming, but I knew that wasn't the last of it. The trouble started small. First, a few kayaks began showing up on the far end of the lake, bright plastic things paddled by kids who shouted loud enough to scare off every fish for a mile. Then a pontoon boat appeared, complete with a stereo and a grill, anchored like it belonged there. I paddled out one afternoon to politely ask the group to leave. "This is private property," I told them, "and you're trespassing." A guy in board shorts holding a beer shrugged. "Karen said this was the neighborhood lake. She said you're just some squatter who built a shack out here." That shack, for the record, was a 3,000-square-foot timber frame home with a wraparound porch. But logic didn't matter. Karen had started a campaign. By the end of summer, my mailbox was full of printed newsletters from the Lakeside Community Association, complete with bullet points on how I was a threat to neighborhood values. Someone even stapled a notice to my oak tree about a mandatory compliance meeting I was expected to attend. I didn't go. Fall came, and with it the peace I'd built my life around. The kids went back to school, boats disappeared, and the lake quieted. Mornings were foggy and still, the water like glass. I fished off the dock, chopped wood for the stove, and enjoyed the sound of nothing but loons and wind. Then the excavator showed up. I was brewing coffee when I heard the diesel engine grumble through the trees. I stepped out onto my porch and saw the machine lumbering along the edge of my property, on my side of the lake, knocking over saplings and pushing a rough road toward the water. I jogged down to intercept it. The driver was a teenager in a hard hat, startled when I stepped in front of the blade. "You can't be here," I shouted. "Turn that thing around." He shut off the engine and climbed down. "Sorry, sir, I was told this was public access. We're putting in a boat ramp." "Who hired you?" He blinked. Some HOA lady. Karen something." I stared at him for a long moment, then said, "Get that machine off my land before I call the sheriff." He didn't argue. That night I made some calls. Pulled out my deed, boundary surveys, and tax records. Everything checked out. I owned every inch of shoreline. The lake was a natural feature, not man-made, and the water rights were mine, registered with the county. Nobody had the legal right to set foot on my property without permission. So I sent a cease and desist letter to the HOA, copied the county, and installed 2 new, private property, no trespassing signs on the trail Karen had tried to claim. For a while, it worked. But if you've ever dealt with someone like Karen, you know they don't let go. They escalate. Winter was mild that year. The lake didn't freeze solid, but it got quiet again. No boats, no noise, just the occasional coyote yip in the distance. I thought maybe, just maybe, Karen had given up. Then the drones started. First, it was one buzzing overhead while I stacked firewood. Then another hovering over my dock. I caught one filming through the kitchen window while I made breakfast. I shot that one down with a pellet gun and left it on a stump at the property line with a note that said, "Next one gets the 12 gauge. That earned me a visit from Deputy Landers. "She says you threatened her," he said, standing in my driveway. I said I'd shoot down her drone. Not her. "There's a difference." He sighed. "Look, between you and me, I believe you. She's been stirring up trouble in the whole area. But she's persistent. Might be a good idea to install some cameras. Keep a record." I nodded. "Already ahead of you." Spring came early. With it came the HOA's annual meeting. That's when Karen made her final move. I didn't attend, obviously, but I heard about it the next day from my neighbor Greg, one of the few people with enough sense to mind his own business. She brought a motion to declare the lake part of the HOA's common recreational space, he said, sipping a beer on my porch. Claimed you'd built your house illegally and were denying access to a public amenity. Unbelievable, I muttered. She even tried to get a vote to have you removed. Removed. Evicted, Greg clarified. Said the HOA could take legal action and seize your property for non-compliance. I stared at him. That's not how any of this works. He grinned. I know that. You know that. But Karen's got her little army of clipboard warriors who believe every word she says. That night, I decided it was time to end this. The next morning, I contacted a real estate attorney. We drafted a letter, then a formal lawsuit for harassment, trespassing, defamation, and attempted encroachment. We included aerial maps, legal descriptions, timestamps for my security system, even the wreckage of the drone I'd shot down. Then I bought a full-page ad in the HOA's monthly newsletter. It featured a satellite image of the lake with a bold red line outlining my property. Across the top, in 72-point font, were the words, "This lake is mine." Underneath, I included, * my parcel number, * a brief history of the land's ownership, * a reminder that trespassers would be prosecuted, * and a final note, * Karen is not the law. This is not her lake. This is not her land. It's mine. Stay off it. * Karen tried to sue me for defamation of character. The judge dismissed it in 10 minutes. A month later, she resigned from the HOA. By summer, the kayaks stopped coming. The pontoon was gone. No more newsletters in my mailbox, no more drones, no more arguments about docks or trash cans. Just loons and wind again. Peace.